I'd like to welcome everyone to the Florence Weinberg Show. Frank MacKay here on Zoom with our friend and our host, the author of 15 books. Just think of that. From San Antonio, Texas, the home state of Governor Greg Abbott, of all things. And Doc, first of all, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Thanks very much.
I hope you're doing better than Governor Greg Abbott.
I think he's doing just fine. Crazy as he is, excuse me for saying so.
Is he holding up under all of this scrutiny, under all of this pressure? How is he doing?
I'm sure he did his latest caper, I think, in order to get the attention, world's attention, off the fact that that he did not take care of the state's power sources. And naturally, he's in the soup again for what he has just done. So I have no idea. If he's at all sensitive and sensible, he is probably fretting about his situation now, because he stepped in something unpleasant twice by his own choice, really. So he has only himself to blame.
When is he up for re-election?
Oh, goodness. I think probably 2 years from now. I'm not sure. But he's in there for a long haul. We can't vote him out very soon.
Is he someone who had presidential aspirations?
No, I don't think he has presidential aspirations. He was Governor Perry's lieutenant governor, and inherited Texas when the next election came around, much to the sorrow of many of us. But there he is, and I don't think Perry was the sharpest knife in the drawer, and Governor Abbott is even duller. So he has not done much for our state.
Yeah, Governor Perry,
our power grid.
Governor Perry always shocked me how ill-prepared he always seemed. But that's coming from a New Yorker, and I shouldn't say anything, but judging from him, every time I saw him speak, I was always concerned for Texas.
Yes, as well you might have been, because he really, in my book, he was a very poor governor. His main preoccupation seemed to be to put prisoners to death who were on death row. He probably had a nationwide record in putting people to death. And I think Abbott is the same. He's carrying on that tradition.
I guess that plays well with certain people in the Texas area. Texas likes, well, at least the right wing of Texas.
Yes.
Tough Republicans, and that's what they do. They put their prisoners to death, and that gives them that label of toughness.
Yes, exactly. The old cowboy mystique, I guess. You shoot them before you ask them the relevant questions. You just figure they're guilty and bang, that's it. So that's another tradition in Texas with the right wing. And nowadays, Texas has had an influx of people from California who are fleeing California. It used to be the other way around. But California now has become much less livable, unfortunately, because of global warming and the terrible wildfires that roar through Texas every year now. So many people are immigrating to Texas, and most of them are Democrats. So the state is becoming more and more purple. And I think we might have a chance to have another Democratic governor one of these days.
If that ever happens, it changes the whole feature and the whole future of presidential politics, because Texas has been solidly red for many, many years.
20 years since Ann Richards was our governor, our very brilliant, wonderful governor.
She was great. I had the opportunity to meet her. She was terrific.
Yes, she really was. Unfortunately, cancer got her.
Yeah. Well, her opponents couldn't, but cancer did, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it took cancer to get to her. Off mic, I asked you what you were thinking about, and you said governors. Did we cover all the governors you were thinking of?
I was also thinking of yours, Frank. I held, well, from Texas point of view, and from Texas Democrat point of view, Governor Cuomo was a hero. And many Texans watched his daily newscast about COVID and what was going on there. And all of a sudden we got this report that he underreported the deaths in nursing homes. And the implication seemed to be that he was underreporting COVID deaths altogether. But I think what happened was that he shifted the very ill people out of the nursing home into hospitals for better care. Obviously, they needed expert care and it wasn't available at a nursing home. And then the death was reported out of the hospital rather than out of the nursing home. And in my book, that isn't so terrible. It was perhaps an oversight that he didn't count them for the nursing home as well as for somehow categorize them for nursing home rather than hospital. But I don't think that's a death sentence for any governor. And then these women began to come forward saying that he had abused them sexually. And it turns out that he likes to put his hands on either side of a woman's face and give her a kiss. And this, of course, is invading her personal space and probably without her explicit permission. And so 3 people have come forward complaining about it. What is your point of view? You are there, you hear more about it. I understand that his brother Chris refuses to report on him, which is probably proper because he is a relative, he's close to his brother and therefore prejudiced. But tell me how New Yorkers are viewing this whole thing.
He's under serious fire. Let me point out what you had mentioned about COVID. That's where he got national prominence. He became the nation's governor, so to speak. But one of the reasons that happened, and for reasons of full disclosure, I know Andrew Cuomo very, very well. Well, I shouldn't say that. I've known him for a long time, and I know him. I know him well enough. I don't know that anybody really knows him well. There's a couple of people that are very close to him. He's a little, he's a little bit standoffish. There's an old expression about Andrew Cuomo, and it's that he treats his friends worse than most people treat their enemies. He's a hard-nosed, guy who wants what he wants when he wants it, and he's the son of a 3-time elected, very popular governor, brilliant orator, Mario Cuomo, and some would say maybe he didn't earn his way there. But compared to President Trump, he sounded so eloquent and he sounded so informed. He was going by the faxes, he was going by the facts rather than emotions and the silliness that we were getting out of the White House, with doctors and experts rolling their eyes behind the president and just saying laughable things. And some would argue the president was just outright lying. So just suppose Andrew Cuomo looked absolutely brilliant and fantastic to President Trump, and it really launched him into prominence. By the way, by no means does that give him the right to put his hands on a woman or to make advances without, by the way, also 25-year-old woman, he's, 64-year-old guy. Look, and you were married to a much older man, different, 20 years, and you were married to him. But imagine, if a man 10 years older than me was coming on to a 25-year-old, and that's a little creepy. What's the word? That's
Creepy is a good one.
Creepy is a good one. So yeah, I mean, so all of that, just terrible, and you mentioned Chris Cuomo doesn't want to report on his brother. They've told him, CNN has told him that he can't report on his brother. And that's what it was. It's it's disappointing, and it's disappointing for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
That this happened. But again, when you're in a position of power, you have to be extra careful that you're not stepping over any line and whatever. But certainly the competence level of Andrew Cuomo compared to the competence level of President Trump looks so much weighed in Cuomo's favor that he just looked brilliant compared to Trump. And maybe that went to his head, and maybe he did all of this, but who knows? But very disturbing.
Well, I don't think it went to his head, because his behavior patterns haven't changed. I think he simply felt that he had he could express his feelings towards women that way, and he didn't see anything wrong with it. And of course, that was a grave misjudgment, because if you invade somebody's personal space, male or female, you really need to be sure that the other person is accepting it explicitly, rather than you're just assuming that you can come onto them like that. But he may not have meant any harm, and certainly no sexual overture, just a mark of affection. A friend of mine had her husband, back before COVID, would greet me. Of course, here in Texas, people hug each other very often. And especially the Hispanic people hug each other, and may even kiss each other on the cheek, uninvited. And this man would come and grab me and kiss me on the mouth.
Wow.
And he thought this was just fine. It never occurred to him that this was a bit unusual and questionable in the minds of the observer and also of the recipient. But
wow.
But he did not mean, there's absolutely no indication that he meant this as a sexual overture. Very nice kiss, not invasive at all, but there it was. And that was sort of an extreme example of Hispanic fondness for another person. So having had that experience, I'm wondering whether Cuomo didn't have the same sort of psychology that this gentleman does, and didn't mean any harm by it. But on the other hand, he's in a position to know that he can't do that. And he's just found that out now at the age of what, 60 something? I mean, it's pretty unusual. But to go back to the reporting of COVID deaths, I don't think he didn't report the deaths, because he reported all the deaths that came out of the hospital, surely. And some of those were people who had been transferred from nursing homes to the hospital. Am I right or am I wrong?
Yes, but where it really came to prominence, this issue, was Melissa DeRosa, who is his right-hand person. I know Melissa, wonderful lady, very bright, very competent. She came out and she told a conference call, but it was among people that they trusted. And she said that we underreported and we held back reporting because we were afraid of an investigation from the Trump administration, is what she said. And that's what sent it all, hell broke loose at that point. And it was her making that admission.
Yes, yes. Okay, well, I stand corrected then.
I thought more that if they would have been straight from the beginning,
Mhm.
it would have really mirrored what you were just saying now. But there's that
Mhm.
old expression that the cover up is always worse than the crime. And they openly tried to cover up some of this, and
Yeah.
they admitted it. If they would have just said, "Hey, this is what's happening here, and we're in a terrible situation. Uh, let's get a handle on this," I think they would have looked very good. But they were definitely afraid of Barr and the Attorney General of the United States and the U.S. Justice Department, controlled by Trump. And then I think they were afraid all types of things were going to go wrong.
Mhm. Yes. Well, I don't doubt that Trump would have gone after him. After all, he made no secret of his disgust with Trump and uh, and with Bill Barr as well. So, well, it's just too bad. So, what do you think his future is going to be? He is not going to resign.
No.
Uh, so, how do you gauge the general attitude in New York towards him by now?
Well, at this point, there's a death watch, and when I say a death watch, I mean a political death watch.
Yes.
And there are some people that I know that were very close to him, that I always thought were very close to him, that giving him 90 days before a lot of pressure comes on him, or enough pressure comes on him that he leaves. I think there's a middle ground, politically speaking, if he could survive to just say I won't run again, because 2022 is when he's supposed to run again.
Uh-huh.
And this would be his fourth term. His father lost in his fourth term. If he turns around and says, "Listen, I'm not leaving, but I will. I plan on finishing out my term," that might be the compromise of people that want his head, and
Mhm.
and people that might tolerate saying, "Look, he needs another year and a half to just get by." I think that could be the end outcome, but I don't know. Anything could happen. If a fourth accuser comes,
Mhm.
if a lady comes forward and makes another accusation and it's credible, maybe it's going to be heavy pressure. But there are three people that, and this is very inside baseball. I won't bore the listeners with all of this, but there are three people. One is Charlie King. He's somebody that has a closeness to him. He's the former Democratic chair, state chair. Uh,
Mhm.
and also Joe Morelli, who's a congressman from upstate New York, Rochester, your old stomping grounds. Uh,
Right.
he has credibility and a relationship with Andrew Cuomo that would be strong enough to tap him on the shoulder, a la Barry Goldwater, and say, "Mr. Governor, it's
Mhm.
time to go." And then the third one would be someone named Bill Mulrow, who's outside of he's on the outside of politics. He's politics, but he's on the outside of government. And
Uh-huh.
recently, he was his closest person on the outside. So if one of those three came and said, Mr. Governor, it's time to go, he might leave.
Uh-huh.
But it
Uh-huh.
would have to be somebody of that stature.
Yes. Uh-huh. So if his really trusted friends would tell him it's time to go, it would be sort of the way Nixon reacted to the Republican leaders coming and saying, "Look, you can't get out of this. You better resign." So it would be a similar situation. Yeah. Well, personally, of course, I haven't experienced his rough side, his uh, overbearing side. Uh, I've only watched him give the facts on the COVID situation in New York City and all of that. And so I was one of those who admired him. And therefore, I would like to see him continue to the end of this term at least. So that's my take from Texas.
Well, a lot
um,
of people agree with you, especially from the outside. His numbers are down. He's 39% approval rating, but
whew,
for
that is low. Yeah.
that is low. He was lower than that before he did this bail reform to kind of try to appease the left, and disaster. And he was looking at a total disaster. And then COVID came along, and COVID came along. He handled it much better than many. I should say most people saw him handling it much better than the president of the United States handled it, and his numbers skyrocketed.
Yes, right.
But he was real low before COVID, and and now and back now. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people agree with you, especially that are the outside of New York, outside looking in. But I think a lot of people would like to see him survive.
Yeah. Not necessarily for another term, but
No.
certainly for the rest of this term. Yeah.
Right. If he does that, he could survive to maybe fight another day. And but if he resigns, it would be very difficult for him to come back.
Yeah, of course. And it might make the fortune of his lieutenant governor. She looks like, of course, I know absolutely nothing about her, but she looks like a very intelligent and capable person, just from the outside again.
Terrific. I think she's terrific. And, she's handling this well. And I think one of the main things is that that people now that are from the middle, like Kathleen Rice is a congresswoman, very popular in her district. She has a very good district. She's the one who said, now it's time, Mr. Governor, you got to step down. She said that in a tweet, and that was a kind of a breaking point, and a lot of people are following suit right after that. Of course, he doesn't have to listen. He doesn't have to leave. He could just he could run out the clock, as they say.
Well, I'm sure he has some good things to do still in mind, and he ought to be able to carry them out. But I expect he could do that by suggesting it to his lieutenant governor, and she could do it for him. But anyway, that's a sad situation.
On a different note, we're speaking on March 4th. Do you know what
Yes.
Of March 4th?
Have you heard anything about any attempt on the Capitol?
Nothing yet, but I was in the barbershop earlier, and it was a very Trump favored barbershop. I didn't realize, I knew that there were, but nobody was wearing masks, of course. And somebody said, right as I was leaving, they said, the real president may be back today. And I tried not to roll my eyes, and I got out of there in a hurry. But the real president might be back. I don't know what they're thinking, but it sounds like insanity to me. What do you hear?
Yes, it is. It is total insanity. It's like saying, well, Christ is coming back today. And many of them believe that he is the savior, especially QAnon. So you might have been in a nest of QAnon people.
Is that insane?
Maybe you better look for a different barber.
Yeah, well, I think this will be the last time I go to that barber. It's not like he did such a great job either. I'm just looking at myself on Zoom, and it's not like he made me look like Redford, or whoever has the best hair now. But I think I could find a new barber just as easy. But
yes, I'm sure you can. There must be quite a choice of barbers around where you live.
And what would they expect? I mean, what do people expect to happen? How Joe Biden leaving, and I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's delusional.
Yes, it is absolutely delusional. It's like thinking, oh, he's going to be wafted into the Capitol on a cloud. It's well beyond belief for anybody who is in this world rather than the alternate universe that they've created for themselves. People all over the world are wondering about Americans, what's happened, that people can believe in this absolutely wild set of myths that they have created.
We've had a very rough 4 years. a very rough 4 years. Not exactly the pride of the universe in the last 4 years. We were made fun of quite a bit. We were
Yes.
mocked, and now it's. I've got to say, things are so level now. You're not hearing every day that the president offended the prime minister of this country or that country, and I like it. And I know people originally were saying, or Trump people were saying, Sleepy Joe. And some people said, you know what? I'll take Sleepy Joe. I'll take,
Mhm.
that means that he's boring, or that he's non-eventful, or most of his days are non-eventful. I'll take that. I don't know that that's the role of the president to stir up headlines and to agitate people. And that's what we got for 4 years.
And of course, I wouldn't say he's Sleepy Joe, considering the number of executive orders he has sent down, all of which are things that needed to be done, and the fact that he's getting this COVID relief bill through the Senate, which is quite a trick.
Wow.
Given the resistance of people who QAnon people like that Johnson from Minnesota, not Minnesota, Michigan. Anyway, he's been tireless. He's done something every day, but it's not something that would infuriate the majority of the American people, or shock or disgust the majority of the American people, the way we've had for 4 years now. And I consider that a blessing, and certainly he is not Sleepy Joe.
He's also made an announcement in the last couple of days that by the end of May, he expects all adults to be vaccinated. I think that was wonderful.
I think so too. Nobody can fault that. And what annoys me is that the Republicans are still resisting this COVID relief bill on the grounds that it's too big and it's loaded with goodies for the Democrats. It's actually loaded with goodies for the American people.
Yeah. It's just, I don't understand it. I don't understand how anybody is going to slow that down. And I'm an independent, I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent, and it just sounds like they're still marching to the beat of the rich drum. They're protecting. They're either being obstructionist, which, by the way, some could argue that Mitch McConnell was the whole time during President Obama's administration.
Yes, he certainly was.
Yeah, and you could also. Oh, and we got a cat in the picture. Who is that?
We do indeed have a cat who is right next to the computer and probably will walk across in front of it in a minute.
It's good that they're healthy, during the freeze that you had. Look, in closing, how is everything as far as you could see in San Antonio? You gave a couple of reports a couple of weeks in a row, and it sounded like things were getting under control, but for a little while there, it was very scary.
Things are much better. We have something like 400 people in the hospital now instead of 600. Our contagion rate is down, but we are still under vaccinated. And I'm very, very lucky in being able to get my first vaccination tomorrow afternoon.
Nice.
Yes. Finally. I'm very happy about that. But I think about 3% of the Black population and Hispanic population has been vaccinated, whereas 23% of the white population has been vaccinated. So North San Antonio is doing much better than the South. Generally, the South, both East and West, and south of the midline of San Antonio. And also, the Black and Hispanic people are getting.
That's the cat.
Yeah, the cat was scratching himself. But they're catching COVID much more and dying from it much more frequently than white people. So there's no justice around here. I know our mayor is very concerned, but it's a matter of organization and the organization of, especially of getting people tested and vaccinated has not gone well. Now, our governor made his announcement that he was eliminating all safeguards in Lubbock, and Lubbock has vaccinated half of its population because it had apparently a good system, which we don't have. I don't know why, because we have a very good mayor and a halfway decent city council. Why he didn't have a waiting list, for instance, so people could sign up and then be called in order, which is how Lubbock did it. It beats me. But the reaction to Governor Abbott's proclamation on day before yesterday, on Tuesday, was extremely negative. Our mayor said said taking away our first line of defense is a tragedy, and our former judge Nelson Wolf, who is also a major authority here in San Antonio, has said this proclamation is certainly no damned help, and that we will see the hospitals fill up in April. He's afraid, and I'm also expecting it, because after all, spring break and Easter are coming, and I went to buy groceries yesterday, and half the people in the grocery store were maskless. So they were running around, and one guy right behind me gave a great sneeze, and hit the back of my neck with it, without a mask, of course, or didn't put his hand over his face. I glanced back and saw that his hands were elsewhere. And so that's what's happening now in San Antonio. So I expect that there will be a spike again all over Texas.
Terrible. I mean, put a mask on people. Anybody listening that's not wearing a mask, shame on you. You got to do it. It's not for you. It's not making you look cool or cavalier. It doesn't make you look like John Wayne. I would hope that John Wayne would have respect for his fellow person and put a damn mask on. I mean, it's
right.
It's not about you. It's about people around you.
Right. This business of damaging your personal freedom is so stupid. Stupid. It has nothing to do with your personal freedom. It has to do with your respect for yourself, and more than for yourself, for your fellow man. To try to make sure that you're not passing your germs to them. And of course, you hope they don't pass theirs to you. And the fellow behind me yesterday did not give a damn, quite frankly.
What was the reaction of the people in the store when he sneezed? Were people disgusted?
There were only the two of us in that aisle. It was the frozen food aisle, and he was right behind me. And we were the two. We were walking. I had just filled my basket with frozen food and was on my way out, and I guess he was too.
Wow, disgusting. Really,
yes, really.
not just germ-wise, but I mean ethically, just terrible.
Well, yeah, I mean, just any time during the winter or during any season, you don't sneeze without covering your face in some way, making an effort not to spray the person in front of you. I mean, it's just uncivilized to begin
Yeah.
No bringing up at all.
Terrible. I mean, if there was no pandemic, it would be disgusting and terrible. Doc, any final words?
Well, yes, I just hope that people will be sensible here in Texas and will keep wearing masks and keep 6 foot distance and wash hands and do all those things that are good for suppressing this virus until everyone gets vaccinated.
Yeah, well, listen, well said and well thought out. Terrible. Put on masks, people. It's ridiculous not to. If you're sneezing and not covering your mouth, you should absolutely, even if there wasn't a pandemic, you shouldn't be doing that. Anyway, we're about to get cut off, but Dr. Florence Weinberg, thank you very, very much, sharing each and every week. And I'll urge everyone to listen to the radio show and the podcast. You have 106 different outlets to hear it on, and maybe more at this point. And each and every week, you could hear this wonderful lady. And I'm very proud to be her co-pilot on this. And to everyone out there, thanks for listening to the Zoom version of the Florence Weinberg Show.